Welcome to the Progression Health Podcast. I'm here with Taylor Temple. Taylor, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah. Hey, folks. So it's Taylor Temple here, owner of Mind and Body by Temple. So I'm a holistic health and wellness coaching company, and I specialize in creating pain-free movement through holistic wellness and in-person training. And I also focus on weight loss and specifically women's hormones.
Great. So we talked a little bit off air. You have like an extensive background in the fitness industry. How would you describe yourself and what work you're doing currently within the fitness industry?
Absolutely. So how would I describe myself would be I've worn almost every hat in the industry, coming from a new personal trainer, moving into management, partnering with small boutique facilities, bringing in other companies from the business world and launching in Canada. So I would say kind of worn every hat within the industry, kind of brings that expertise into Mind and Body by Temple. So with my business, I specifically focus on the holistic wellness aspect. So it's all about creating a healthier and happier version of clients that we work with.
Great. So advice that I hear from people such as Andrew Coates or people with more experience than myself is to try and kind of find what you're most passionate about. And typically that involves like a niche, like a really specific fat loss, muscle building, performance. But holistic, it sounds like it covers a lot of different areas. So why did you choose the holistic approach to working with clients?
Absolutely. So I do the holistic wellness aspect is because it aligns with my personal beliefs so much. I'm one that I don't want to ever recommend medications to clients. And if they're on medications, it's all about reteaching them how to take care of themselves. So when I specifically work with pain-free clients or weight loss clients, it's like, how do we create the healthiest version of you naturally through movement and through whole foods and the organic way?
That's interesting. I'm really thinking a lot about, the new weight loss medications that are available now to treat type 2 diabetes, but they're also great fat loss. So have you experienced with some clients who are on those, who are thinking about using those weight loss medications?
Absolutely. So I had 2 clients that were on the Ozempic, and it was a brutal experience for them. Like that medication, when you take it for long periods of time, completely destroys you, destroys your gut lining, your bowel movements. And it's just not an unpleasant way to function in your day to day. So naturally, we just wean them off of it. And then while they're weaning off that medication, we're just implementing much more sustainable habits. So then they can continue that weight loss without becoming dependent on that medication.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when those clients were on the medication, in spite of the side effects, did they see fat loss? Did that occur?
It did within the first 5 weeks, and then they just stayed stuck. So the scale did lose the first 10 pounds quite effectively. But then after that, they maintained that weight. So it's really good to help assist someone in their initial journey on their weight loss, but it's not a long-term drug.
Interesting. And then the physiology is one part, but psychologically, how were those clients when they hit that plateau? Like, as in, did they want to stay on the medication? Did they want to come off? Was that like a difficult kind of transition?
So when Ozempic truly blew up within the industry, everyone thought this is the magic pill, right? This is the quick fix we've all been waiting for. So as soon as that started happening and people hit that plateau, what do you think the doctors are doing? They're not taking them off of it. They're just increasing the dosage, right?
Right.
So then what due to the side effects? It was a bit of a wreck.
When you empower clients through your work in this specific situation, what were the changes that they made? And I'd imagine, if I had to kind of guess, it would be like they wouldn't necessarily change a whole lot of what they're doing. They just remove the medication. Is that the case, or was there a lot more to it once they came off the medication?
I think that's a great question. So the unfortunate part is the doctors didn't sit down and give them a nutrition plan and give them guidance, right? So when I started working with them, they were already on the medication. So no one taught them how to create a healthier lifestyle or how to lose weight. They were just given that medication. So when they came to me, that's when we started just implementing those practices. So then they could start weaning their way off of this medication.
Nice. And then what about side effects that they had seen previously on the medication? How did the weaning off process affect the side effects?
Definitely. So I did have one client, they did start to gain that weight back, but that just we needed to push harder. And truthfully, when you don't have to live by a bathroom around the clock, they were able to go about their day-to-day life a little bit better.
Yeah, I'd imagine the stress and anxiety of that kind of feeling of just your digestive system not being working effectively. That must have been a huge relief for those clients.
Absolutely. Being in business meetings with them and then being scared to even have a sip of water because they didn't know if they had time to go to the bathroom, if anything was going to go south. It was not the way to function.
So it's like Ozempic is sold as a little bit of a miracle medication, or any weight loss medication in a way, or maybe it's not sold that way, but it's kind of easy to think of it as I take this pill, it's a silver bullet, I'll lose the 50 pounds or the 5 pounds, whatever it is I need to lose. it'll be plain sailing. But is it fair to say that your experience is that there's a lot of side effects? You mightn't even see the weight loss you want, and you could be worse off after a cycle or a phase of using this medication?
Absolutely. Like there is literally no such thing as a quick fix. And if the people are marketing it as a quick fix, it's like, show me this exact person. Sure, they might have lost this 20 pounds in the first 6 weeks, but what did they look like the next 6 months of coming off of it? Right? Because there's just no habits that have been created. And I work with a few doctors as well, and they will definitely own up to it. It's like, this is a temporary just to help someone and encourage them on their weight loss journey. This is not a long-term thing. And the sad reality is like a lot of people are using it for months and months and even years.
Wow, right. So let's say somebody's listening, they're thinking about taking it, they haven't seen the results they wanted to see, they've been working hard. What would you say to someone who's kind of weighing up the pros and cons of taking the weight loss medication?
I would say, consult your doctor. I'm not a doctor, so definitely that'd be step one.
Yeah.
Step two would be, there's nothing wrong with using something to assist you if you have put in the work, if you have done everything you can possibly think of for your nutrition and you're still not getting those results. I would recommend a blood test at that point and get your hormones checked. But at that point, Ozempic is safe as long as you continue to work harder with everything else. It's not a take Ozempic, it's going to fix everything. That's there to assist you with everything else that you're doing.
A part of your work is lifestyle coaching. I can sort of picture what that is, but just what does that look like in practice, and how do you help clients to have a healthier lifestyle?
I think like the starting piece, one of the first variables I work with clients, and I'll ask you this one. It's like, how much water do you drink in a day?
I'm just going to say not enough, but I don't track how much water I drink. So it's kind of just like I try and get some in around my workouts, which is usually in the morning or the afternoon, and then wean off as the night goes on. But it's challenging because the more I drink later in the day, the more I have to go to the bathroom and the more disruptive it is when I sleep. So I would say just whatever it is that I need. I feel like I'm 70% of the way there, but that's just a very vague answer.
Yeah, but you want to know what? That is a realistic answer. And that is usually the response I get with most people. Is like, I drink less than 500 milliliters of water because I can't afford to go to the bathroom all day, right? I'm busy work or it interrupts my sleep. So that is literally the first variable I work with people. And I always give a hand analogy there. It's like our mind is made up of 70% water. Our body's made up of 75% water. So if we're not hydrating ourselves, we function like this. And there's extreme resistance, stiffness, brain fog. We're just not functioning properly. But when we are hydrated, we do have that 70% hydration in the brain, that 75% hydration in our muscles. We're now functioning like this with minimal resistance, right? And flow. So that is usually the first variable I start with when it comes to lifestyle coaching, reteaching people how to slowly but surely take care of themselves again.
And I'd imagine for somebody new to health habits and lifestyle coaching, drinking more water, it's not that extreme. It's like low hanging fruit, and it's like banking a small win straight away. Is that kind of part of the lifestyle coaching where you do like achievable, sustainable changes?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. Like, it's not rocket science, and pardon me for saying that, but everyone can do it. So if like you start with something small like that and people can feel the benefits of it, it just encourages them to do more.
So it's almost like the opposite of the weight loss medication, which is kind of an extreme fast and there's clear side effects. It's kind of, Absolutely. If you're making a change, you want it to be sort of kind of a slow burn, long-term, and like slow results. Is that kind of a philosophy around it?
You want to know what? 100% more sustainable habits. So I'm not about the quick fixes, because the reality is, as fast as it comes off, it's going to be just as fast coming back on, right? So when I work with my clients, it's like 10, we go 0 to 10, build those habits, make sure those are rock solid. And then we go 10 to 20. And then those are rock solid. And we just go step by step instead of trying to do everything all at once.
Got it. And then someone who's maybe a little bit older, kind of like middle-aged, we'll say, who has always felt like they're overweight and they haven't seen or felt the success that comes with making progress with their health. Would it be a reasonable goal to maintain their weight, but to improve the habits? So like, drinking more water, sleeping better, and increasing their activity, and they could improve their lifestyle that way, aside from fat loss? Or would it be you'd always try to, like, I'll take the example of someone who is overweight or maybe obese. Would fat loss still be focus even if they could improve the other habits?
I think that's still always going to be our big picture, but these are going to be the smaller like stepping stones leading up to it. But 100%. But as long as, and that's like the biggest concept that I have to implement to my clients' brains, I spend how much time with you. So like we have 168 hours in the week. And if you're spending a handful of hours with me, you are responsible to do things on your own time as well. So I think that's the biggest thing when people are working with clients, is they have this false reality or perception that this is going to be enough working with someone a few hours a week. But the reality is they need to take ownership and start to do those small things in their own time too.
Yeah, you're kind of mentioning responsibility responsibility. Is it a case that the client has to have, first and foremost, a mindset change to make the health changes? Because I feel like that's what you're pretty much saying without actually saying it.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like they need to want it and they need to commit to themselves, because if they can't commit to driving the right behaviors, that end result might be unrealistic for them.
So a question I've been asking clients recently is why haven't you been able to make the change yourself? It's a really interesting question to ask, because it's kind of like they're coming to ask for help, but they haven't been able to make the change themselves. So how do you kind of help a client to uncover that kind of motivation, or that sort of like willingness to take more responsibility or to put more work in when you first start working with them, or maybe when they hit a plateau and a challenge?
Absolutely. So I think that's a really good one, is starting off with, hey, what is the obstacles here and how can we minimize this or mitigate it moving forward? With that, I know with my clients, it's like you sit down and it's like, okay, you were not to achieve this goal. Why would that happen? Like, what is the reason that's going to stop you if anything arises, right? So I think knowing their why and kind of their reason for even showing up in the first place is so important. So if you have clients coming to you and they're like, I'm here to get healthy, to play with my grandchildren, it's like, okay, that is now constantly going to be their motivator. They start hitting a plateau or they start getting lazy when it comes to their habits, then you have that conversation with them and just remind them, hey, you remember why you started?
Something I've noticed with some clients is like they'll even say like, literally, I want a drill sergeant, or I want you to, no bullshit, and like tell it to me, and I'm not going to be bossing you around here. I'm going to uncover the motivation that's there. I'm not going to give you motivation that you don't have. So how do you, what do you say to a client who kind of has that mentality that they might be lazy, kind of write themselves off basically?
If a client comes to me, so they're showing up to work out with you. So it's like, that's your win. You showed up. That's the hardest part. So now you're here. You need to maximize on this time. So it's like, you're here. We're just going to do this. Like, you've shown up, you just need to work out now. Or do you mean like they're starting to quit and they're now unengaged or disengaged?
Not that they're quitting or disengaging, but more that they're kind of putting themselves down, or sort of they have this kind of critical kind of mindset.
So like if I have a client, they're coming in and say we did a set and then they start the negative self-talk is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Then yeah, you call them out on it. And it's like, hey, that was a great set. You're not sitting on the couch right now. The easy thing to do would have been to stay at home, would have been to not show up today, but you made it here and we're pushing you. So that's good. So it's really just catching them when they're in that state of mind and trying to just reframe the way that they're communicating to themselves, right? And then with that, kind of with Mind and Body by Temple, is it also there's a mindset component. So that's when I would probably give them homework if I saw that they were in that negative self-talk trap.
Interesting. So what would be some homework you've given in the past that's worked with clients who have this critical mindset?
Absolutely. So it'd be small wins, focusing on that, right? So I have an app. So say they feel like they're not motivated, they're not accomplishing anything, then put easy tasks into the app. So then they get that check mark. Every time they check it off their list, it's a little dopamine hit that they get. And now they're feeling better. They're gaining that confidence, right? So focusing on the small wins that they might be overlooking, or sometimes journaling. So I know that's one of my favorite things. My female clients are more prone to doing that, but literally just journaling and not forcing them, but getting them to show some more gratitude towards themselves.
It's seeing the work they're doing already that they are just, for some reason, it's like they filtered out.
Absolutely. And that is very common. Or sometimes they realize, shit, I do need to do more. I'm not doing this, right? And that's why I feel like this.
Is that a common situation where a client, maybe they initially felt like, hey, I'm doing a lot, and then they work with you for a while and they're like, oh, I could be doing a lot more?
Absolutely. That happens.
That must be a tough conversation or a tough situation.
Yes and no. It's all about how you approach things, right? So it's putting things into perspective. And I go back to, there's 168 hours in the week. You spend 2 with me. How many other hours do you spend? So you have 166 hours left. What does that look like? And once you ask those questions and people start thinking about those things, there's a true perspective shift there.
Got it. Yeah. So you could look at it like, oh, I have so much more work to do. Or you could be like, oh, this is a good thing. I see where I'm at. I have clarity. And now I know how to set my next goal, for example.
Or even then it's like, oh my goodness, I have 166 hours. I could be hitting the gym on my own, or I could be getting outside and going for a 20-minute walk on my lunch break. Like, there are other variables that they can be committing to as well. So we just setting down and setting like actionable items for them so they can start to implement those things. Absolutely.
You've worked in the industry for a while. How has your approach to your health and working with clients and then your own training changed over time?
Yeah, so approach to health, exercise, and nutrition has changed over time. I was kind of the extreme side of the scale. Now I'm kind of still more on the extreme side, I would say, but not as extreme as I used to be. So obviously dialed into a T when it comes to competing at a high level. You have to weigh out everything, meal timing, timing matters, right? So going from there and then trying to wean myself off of that was actually, I struggled very hard. So I battled with that. I'm a very A personality type. So I almost started beating myself up and starting to feel guilty when I initially started to make the transition off of meal plans post competition. Just eating a donut, I feel guilty about that. I shouldn't have had that, right? Or go to sit down, have a meal, still weighing things out when there's no reason why I should have. So post competition, you're usually one side of the spectrum or you're on the other side. And unfortunately, you end up gaining a significant amount of weight, right? So for me, my last competition was 2019, but I really struggled with this in like 2016, 2017. So just teaching myself kind of, and it helps working with clients too, to not feel guilty about the food you eat and try to make a little bit of an 80-20 balance with your nutrition.
So that's something that I hear this time of year, especially a lot of clients will say, oh, I need to track, and they're getting very precise with their nutrition. And I'm like, in my head, my reaction is like, if you weren't working at your nutrition before, you just need to make a small change, like to see a huge improvement. What would you say to someone who maybe is tracking currently or who's considering it based on your experience?
So I always say to my clients, you want to know what? Unless you're stepping on stage, there's no reason why you should be weighing out every single meal. It's just no way, unless we're going on to some kind of competition. So it's all about just creating the healthier alternative for yourself. Like there's a difference between creating awareness around your portion sizes and being a stickler about how many ounces is on your plate. So I always say when we talk nutrition with clients, after we've got like the backbone already established with their water, with their movement, then we talk about nutrition. And it's like, what's on your plate? You need to prioritize your protein. You need to be eating some kind of protein almost every time you eat, like 4 times a day at least. And you need to eat your vegetables. It's like those are usually the 3 components that I establish first. And then from there we build up. But once again, doesn't need to be extreme at all.
What about something like MyFitnessPal without, let's just say someone's kind of eyeballing it, they're just kind of looking, they're like, okay, I think that's, or they're scanning the barcodes. To me, that's a step back from weighing your food. What would your thoughts be on that if a client wanted to use that approach?
So I love that you asked that question. So I had a client and he had 0 nutrition experience, like was eating out probably 3-4 times per day. And the exact thing I did was, okay, we're going to log MyFitnessPal. I want you just to track what you've been eating. And guess what? He came back to me at the end of the week and the awareness it created around that. He's like, I didn't realize I was eating 4,000 calories a day. They were small portions. And I was like, yeah, there's a difference between quality food and non-quality food, right? So that really puts things in perspective for people. And also, I think MyFitnessPal is a great tool to teach people macros because a lot of people, majority of the population has 0 knowledge of what a macro is and the importance behind them as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like sort of a lesson you should take, and how much protein, fat, and carbs are in different foods, but it's like we talked about earlier, it's not sustainable over the long term.
Absolutely not, right? And there's a difference between calorie counting and there's a difference between macro tracking. So like I do use MyFitnessPal with clients to get them more macro focused.
Yeah, just get the foundational knowledge and then not be so intensive over time.
Absolutely.
So you competed in the past, and in my own experience, when I have a clear goal of like it's 6 months to this or 6 weeks or whatever, it's really easy to have intensity in the training and stay focused with training. But now that you don't compete, how has that affected your training and your approach to your own training?
So I'm actually training for an ultra marathon right now. So the intensity of the training is still pretty up there. But usually, so if I'm not in a training phase to step on stage, which my last competition was 2019, so it's been a little bit, I do more powerlifting style training. So every month, I usually set goals anyway, as far as like squats, front squats, back squats, and deadlifts, and kind of what I can work towards. So the intensity is always there. The only variable that I change would be the volume side of things, if that makes sense.
You're running and also weight training at the same time. Is that right?
You betcha. So I'm starting out a little bit. So I'm not running until the end of August. So I'm slowly just adding it into the routine, but I do 45 minutes twice a week right now.
Great. So how does that affect your training? As in, do you have to set your training up differently? Because I've been running a bit myself and doing a bit of weight training. And I notice a lot of other people are also trying to do it and trying to make the running and the weightlifting work together. I believe they can. It is difficult, but how have you found success in making both of them work in the same week in the same kind of training program?
Absolutely. So you're not going to be hitting any PRs when you're running. That's just inevitable, right? Your body's going to be slightly more fatigued than it usually would be. But I truly believe they complement each other. Like I've trained clients for marathons in the past. I've trained myself for ultra marathons in the past. And I would say barbell training or resistance training should be in the program for runners because running is just so detrimental to our hips that and our knees. It should be a non-negotiable.
I'm convinced that I haven't had any injuries yet, touch wood, because of the weight training. I just feel like it like bulletproofs my body, and I'm definitely biased and it's definitely early days of my running career, but for now it's definitely helped me reduce my risk of injuries and rate of injuries. Have you had any injuries from running, and how have you managed those if so?
Have I had any injuries from running? Absolutely. I'm pretty sure last year I tore or sprained my hip flexor. And truthfully, I would not recommend this to clients, but I trained through it. I just upped the rehab of it, started every single workout with rehab. I was in pain. It sucked, but I still pushed through my workouts. And over time, it fixed itself, obviously with chiropractic adjustments and massage as well. But so that was my approach. With clients, I would say, okay, we need to get cleared, go get assessed, get your massage, get your physio in, and then we'll complement everything that they're doing with your training program. And then we'll build back up. But for me, I'm intense. I'm extreme side of things. And I do like to experiment with myself a bit. I pushed through it and it was turned out pretty good.
I would do the exact same thing, but like not without kind of considering what I'm doing, So it's like if I was to, sit around and rest, sure, it could help recovery, but could also lose out on the benefits of exercise and take as much rest as you need, but no more, like exercise is just so beneficial to our mindset, our mental health, not like forcing it and trying to just continue as if nothing happened, but also not doing nothing, trying to find that sweet spot in the middle. So what did you change in terms of like your weight training and your running when you had this injury?
Absolutely. So intensity levels, right? So it's like you can't demand the same intensity out of your body when it's overcoming an injury, right? So you need to allow the recovery time to be there and also just turning it down. So then focusing more on the prehab side of things was a little longer walking into a workout, right? Less intensity of the resistance training, and then obviously focusing on the rehab at the end of the workout too. So a lot more focus around that. And that was the biggest thing. But I also am a strong believer when it comes to injuries is movement is key. Like movement will help you overcome this. Sedentary routines are usually what just amplifies it.
So it's kind of like your approach is basically it's a lifestyle. It's not like there's no on off. It is just you kind of modify depending on the challenge you're facing.
Absolutely.
So one post that you had online was F the scale, and the scale shouldn't be your primary source to measure your progress. And I think a lot of people kind of like MyFitnessPal and just using the scale, they kind of jump to that. But I've used the scale before. I've heard it with clients and stuff, and it's like very easy to become obsessive with the number. It's like, oh, you live and die by the number on the scale. So, what is your experience with using the scale for gauging progress, and how can people use the scale in a more sustainable way?
Absolutely. So I think there's two things that I would probably touch base with that on that one is like if you are using the scale, make sure you're weighing at the same time of the day. I've had clients come to me and be like, I weighed in Monday morning and then I weighed in Friday night. And there's a 10-pound difference. And I said, yes, your body varies 5 to 10 pounds throughout the day based on food consumption, sleep, stress levels. So make sure when you use the scale, if you're using that as your method, same time in the morning. Okay. Secondly, with that one, I always say if you are using the scale, make sure you're incorporating other tools to measure your progress as well, either pictures or head to toe measurements. So for myself, if I were to, the post you're talking about, based off of doctor's standards, and if I were to step on a scale, my weight is close to obese, like is pushing the unhealthy side. I am a very lean individual, have a significant amount of muscle mass. So that is so inaccurate. So I think that puts things into perspective for some people. I actually have a good client story for you. To finish this up on was that a client never worked out in his life, started seeing me, jumped on the scale. We worked out 4 times per week for 6 weeks, jumped back on the scale, and it didn't budge. But when we did his measurements, he was down over 20 inches head to toe, right? So something like that is you need other tools because the scale is inaccurate. It sucks when you jump on the scale after you put in all this work and it doesn't budge. It is extremely discouraging. So make sure that you use multiple tools to track your progress there.
Absolutely. It's funny when I hear people say that, exercise or the gym doesn't work. And it's like, so if you lift a dumbbell, if you curl a dumbbell, your veins, your bones, your muscle is going to respond to that. It's not like a maybe, I don't know. And sure, there's different responders. Some people can respond by just looking at a set of dumbbells, and some people have to do the 4 sessions a week. But to just, have that one single way to measure progress is limiting. And, there's things like blood sugar, bone density, more importantly for women, And it's like this well that we can go to. I'm talking about exercise, that the more that we go to it, the more that it can pay off. But we just got to find out a way to make it sustainable, like we talked about.
Absolutely. I was actually just heard a podcast episode, and he was saying that you have to consistently do the unsexy things to get that result, right? So it's like just consistent behaviors over time. And like, no, it's not always going to be the most exciting thing. And no, sometimes those results aren't going to just happen, right? But the more consistent you are with the basics.
Absolutely. Yeah. A bit of patience goes a long way. Taylor, this has been great. Thanks very much for your time. Is there any kind of final message you want to leave people with before we wrap up?
Focus on the basics, build up on the basics, and focus on the small wins. And that will be good stepping stones for your big picture. Right on. Thanks for having me, Ross.
Love it. Thanks, Taylor.